Okay, welcome back to The Explainer. We are diving straight into the sudden and honestly terrifying chaos that completely blew up the Washington Hilton on Saturday night. What was supposed to be a night of celebration, a big political tradition, literally fractured in an instant into a harrowing security crisis. Today, we're unpacking the entire anatomy of this event. We'll look at exactly what went down, how a highly secure federal checkpoint was actually breached, and what we know so far about the guy at the center of it all. To really wrap our heads around the scale of this, we've got to start right inside that ballroom. Just picture it. You've got hundreds of guests, journalists, A-listers, the First Lady, and the sitting President of the United States. They're all settled in at the front of the room. And then, loud bangs echo in the distance. What happens next is just immediate, massive confusion. Within seconds, security agents flank the president, rushing him off the stage toward an exit. And in the rush, if you look at the footage, you can actually see the president appearing to fall down to the floor during the evacuation. And this really captures the sheer panic of that exact moment. Donald Trump later recounted the whole thing to 60 Minutes, and he said he heard the specific instruction, "Please go down on the floor." He mentioned that the Secret Service essentially wanted him to crawl out of the room to safety. And it wasn't just him. Across the entire ballroom, guests are ducking under tables, using chairs as shields. Secret Service agents literally drew their weapons right there on the stage. There's even this wild account from a mentalist who was chatting with the president and his press secretary right as the attack popped off. He says he locked eyes with Trump as they both ducked for cover. The whole place went into immediate lockdown. Now, you might be wondering, why does this specific setting matter so much? Well, the stakes were sky high. The White House Correspondents Dinner isn't just any dinner. It's a massive American press tradition dating all the way back to 1921. It's almost always attended by the sitting president, but get this. This was actually Trump's very first time attending as president. He hadn't been there since 2011. So when you pack that many high-level government officials and media heavyweights into one single room, the security apparatus around the event is, as you'd expect, absolutely monumental. All right, Section 1, the checkpoint breach. 5 to 8 shots fired. Let's see how this actually played out. So the gunfire didn't actually happen inside the ballroom. It went down at the hotel's security checkpoint, and it was caught on CCTV. It's a rapid, terrifying exchange. First, prosecutors allege the suspect just rushed right through a magnetometer, holding a long gun. Security officers immediately spun around to chase him. In the confrontation that followed, between 5 and 8 shots were fired. A Secret Service agent, identified in the court docs as Officer VG, was shot right in the chest. Thank goodness he was wearing a ballistic vest, which literally saved his life. The officer returned fire and the suspect went down, though it turns out he wasn't actually hit by any bullets. Agents tackled him just short of a staircase. And here is the truly scary part. That staircase leads directly down to the ballroom where the dinner was happening. He got unbelievably close to the main event. Which brings us to Section 2, profiling the suspect, Cole Thomas Allen. When you look at his background, the contrast is it's really jarring. On one hand, you have the guy on paper, the student. Allen calls himself a mechanical engineer, a game developer, a teacher. He actually graduated from Caltech, which is a highly prestigious school, back in 2017, and he was studying for his master's in computer science. His professor even told the Associated Press he was soft-spoken, very polite, a good fellow, and was completely shocked by the news. But then, on the other hand, you have the suspect. A heavily armed guy charging a federal security checkpoint, totally willing to get into a gunfight with the Secret Service. So how exactly did he end up at the Washington Hilton? Well, court documents show this wasn't some spur-of-the-moment thing. It was a highly calculated cross-country trip. On April 21st, he boarded a train leaving Los Angeles. Over the next couple of days, he rolled through Chicago and finally hit Washington, D.C. on April 24th. This methodical timeline really highlights a deliberate plan. He literally mapped his movements straight from the West Coast right to the nation's capital. Let's move into Section 3, the motive and the arsenal. Okay, so police confirmed that Allen was actually a registered guest at the hotel where the event was happening. And when they arrested him, they recovered a seriously dangerous arsenal: a shotgun, a handgun, and knives. Officials have stated that he appears to have acted completely alone, intentionally bringing these specific weapons to the venue to carry out his plan. But the most chilling piece of evidence? His writings. According to officials, Allen had an email allegedly scheduled to be sent to his family and his employer. Basically, a manifesto. Actually, one family member had already alerted police after getting some messages from him before the attack, though those early messages apparently didn't mention the dinner by name. The manifesto they found later, though, it detailed a very specific intent. He allegedly wrote that he wanted to target members of the Trump administration, quote, from highest ranking to lowest. And he explicitly wrote that while the hotel guests and staff weren't his main targets, he was totally willing to attack them as collateral damage if that's what it took to get to the officials. Investigators are digging through all these writings right now to try and understand his radicalization. President Trump actually brought up the manifesto in his media interviews. He remarked that the suspect, quote, was a Christian believer, and then he became an anti-Christian, and he had a lot of change. This really points to some massive, fundamental shifts in his personal and religious beliefs leading up to the attack. And literally within hours of the shooting, FBI agents and police were already swarming a California address linked to the suspect, just trying to piece this whole puzzle together. So, what does this all mean for Allen now? Well, the severity of what he's facing is massive. Following his arrest, he was brought into court on Monday and hit with 3 very serious federal charges. First, obviously, the attempted assassination of the President of the United States. On top of that, he's charged with transporting a firearm between states to commit a felony and discharging a firearm in a crime of violence. During his appearance, he did not enter a plea. So as we wrap up this explainer, we're really left grappling with this one chilling unknown. How does a guy, described by his own professors as a polite, soft-spoken engineer, transform so drastically into a heavily armed suspect trying to take down the highest levels of government? It's a stark reminder of just how unpredictable political violence can be, how incredibly fast radicalization can escalate, and honestly, the sheer fragility of the security perimeters we all take for granted. Thanks for sticking with me as we unpacked this. Keep questioning, keep staying informed, and ask yourself, how do we actually safeguard our traditions in a world that feels increasingly unpredictable?